Imagine waking up to an inferno, the sky painted blood red, ash falling like snow, and walls of fire racing toward your home faster than you can run. This was not a nightmare, it was reality for thousands of residents in Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles on a fateful November morning in 1965. But what if I told you this fire wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a warning, one we're still ignoring today? This is the story of the 1965 Palisades Fire, a catastrophe that reshaped a city and serves as a haunting reminder of humanity's fragile coexistence with nature. Los Angeles in the 1960s was a city on the rise. Glamorous, sprawling and prosperous, it was a beacon of modern living. But beneath this shimmering facade lay a dangerous truth. The city's rapid expansion into fire-prone hillsides had created a ticking time bomb. Nestled between the Pacific Ocean and the Santa Monica Mountains, Pacific Palisades was a neighborhood of idyllic beauty and affluence. Yet its natural surroundings made it particularly vulnerable. By 1965, years of drought had left the region's vegetation dry and highly flammable. Residents often admired the chaparral-covered hillsides, unaware that this scenic backdrop was a powder keg waiting for a spark. The infamous Santa Ana winds, known for their dry and hot gusts, had been blowing for days. These winds, capable of reaching speeds over 60 miles per hour, are infamous for their ability to fan even the smallest flame into a raging inferno. This volatile combination of natural elements meant the question wasn't if a fire would start, it was when. On November 6, 1965, the inevitable happened. As the fire roared to life, the idyllic calm of Pacific Palisades shattered. Residents described the early hours as surreal. A quiet morning suddenly interrupted by the acrid smell of smoke and the distant sound of crackling flames. But that distance quickly disappeared as the fire surged forward with terrifying speed. By mid-morning, the fire had reached residential areas. Homeowners scrambled to gather what they could: family photos, pets, and a few valuables. The roads became clogged with cars as thousands tried to escape. The scene was chaotic, with ash raining down and thick black smoke obscuring visibility. The speed of the fire was unprecedented. Within hours, it had consumed thousands of acres. Firefighters arrived on the scene, but were hopelessly outmatched. Their efforts were heroic, but hampered by equipment failures, inadequate resources, and the sheer ferocity of the fire. Helicopters were called in to drop water, but the Santa Ana winds made their task nearly impossible. Witnesses later recounted the sheer terror of that day. It felt like the end of the world, one resident said. The heat was so intense you couldn't even breathe. Amid the devastation, stories of survival and heroism emerged. Families clung to each other as they fled through walls of fire. One elderly couple, too slow to evacuate, hid in their swimming pool, keeping their faces submerged to escape the heat. Miraculously, they survived, although their home was reduced to rubble. Firefighters, despite the overwhelming odds, saved countless lives. One team formed a human chain to carry children out of a burning school. Another firefighter suffered severe burns after shielding a family with his body as they escaped. These acts of bravery highlighted the human spirit's resilience in the face of catastrophe. But not all stories had happy endings. A family of 4, trapped in their car, perished as the fire overtook them. Their loss became a symbol of the tragedy's human cost. When the flames were finally extinguished, the scale of destruction was staggering. Over 7,000 acres burned. Nearly 200 homes, many of them luxurious estates, were reduced to ash. The financial toll ran into the millions, but the emotional toll was immeasurable. In the days following the fire, the community came together to mourn and rebuild. Fundraisers were held to support displaced families. Firefighters were hailed as heroes, and their stories dominated local news. Yet beneath the resilience lay anger and frustration. Residents demanded answers. How had this happened? Could it have been prevented? City officials launched an investigation which revealed troubling truths. The fire's rapid spread was partly due to the unchecked growth of flammable vegetation and the lack of fire-resistant building materials in the area. The Palisades Fire wasn't just a local tragedy, it was a turning point for Los Angeles. In the years that followed, fire codes were updated and brush clearance laws were strictly enforced. Homeowners were encouraged to use fire-resistant materials and create defensible spaces around their properties. However, these changes were not enough to prevent future disasters. Over the decades, Los Angeles has continued to face devastating wildfires. The Palisades Fire in 2018, for example, burned nearly 100,000 acres and destroyed over 1,600 structures. The lessons of 1965 seem to have been forgotten, overshadowed by the city's relentless expansion. The 1965 Palisades Fire should have been a wake-up call. For a time it seemed like it was. Fire codes were updated, brush clearance laws were enforced, homeowners were educated on fire safety, but as the years passed, these lessons were forgotten. The population of Los Angeles continued to grow and development pushed further into wildfire-prone areas. Climate change added fuel to the fire, literally. Longer dry seasons, higher temperatures and more intense winds have made fires like the Palisades Fire increasingly common. Modern wildfires, like the Palisades Fire of 2018, bear striking similarities to the events of 1965. Despite advances in technology and firefighting techniques, the core issue remains: the delicate balance between urban development and nature has been ignored. Wildfires are not just a Californian problem, they are a global crisis. From Australia to the Amazon, wildfires have become more frequent and devastating. The Palisades Fire offers critical lessons for today. First, preparation is key. Communities in fire-prone areas must invest in robust evacuation plans, modern firefighting equipment, and fire-resistant infrastructure. Second, prevention is just as important. Controlled burns and vegetation management can reduce the risk of catastrophic fires. Finally, we must address the root causes. Climate change is intensifying wildfires worldwide. Without action, disasters like the Palisades Fire will become even more frequent and devastating. Wildfires are no longer isolated events. They're a global crisis. Whether you live in a fire-prone area or not, we all have a role to play. Educate yourself, support policies that prioritize fire prevention, and advocate for sustainable development. And most importantly, share this story. The 1965 Palisades Fire isn't just history, it's a lesson for the present and the future. Let's ensure that the sacrifices made on that day were not in vain. If you found this documentary insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories that bring history to life. Together, we can learn from the past to build a safer future.